Everybody, this is my mug shot. I went to jail, if you guys didn't get the innuendos that just happened. It's a big, take one for the team. I'm a girl, so that could be very misconstrued. So I just want to be real clear. Take one for the team was incarceration, not anything shifty. But yeah, so I'm here. I got my notes. I normally teach classes. I've been in the cannabis industry a little over 10 years now on the regulated world. And yeah, thank you. I'm here, and as the conversation and the talk is called Blunt Talks, I'm here to be real blunt with everybody. If profanity doesn't work for you, I'm not the speaker for you to listen to. I'm sorry, I do my best. I started donating money to charities when I dropped F-bombs, and I ended up losing money the last time I talked. So we're not going to do that today. But I'm here to be blunt, like I said, with everyone. While there is this utopian vision of what's happening in the cannabis industry that's being portrayed on the media and to the investors and even to some of your clients, there's a really ominous reality that's happening right now that I feel like any of the woke people in the cannabis industry who've been here for more than a couple years, you feel it. And that reality is that a ton of us aren't going to survive this transition. And I don't mean that, I don't say that to be negative, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, and I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade and make you feel bad about it. But in this reality, we are in a transition right now where we all thought we were lions, and we're slowly realizing we're a bunch of gazelles, and lions are showing up ready to fucking eat us. And we weren't aware of that at first. I was here and I thought I was a fucking lion. I've been doing this for a long time, and I was the smartest person in the room for years. And I promise you the magna cum laudes are showing up every day, and they will learn what we are doing. They will learn it, and as much as we feel like we have something that's so amazing and so special that we know that other people don't, this is science, this is agriculture, this is technology, this is retail. These are all normal business practices that other people have been crushing it at for a really long time. And learning weed is not hard. And I don't want to break anyone's hearts on that, but learning about cannabis is not difficult. What we know, this piece, is not special unless we put our all into it. So a little bit about me. I'm here to share some lessons that I've learned. I've been in the industry a little over 10 years. I'm 33, going on what feels like 60 in weed years. I started my professional career in 2007. I was a director of marketing for RJ Reynolds. I designed Camel cigarette marketing for Southern California. It was my first big kid job out of college. And my hero started dying in front of me from cancer, my grandfather, from tobacco use for years and years and years. So my first start over in life was realizing that I wasn't going to be able to make it as a tobacco executive, even though my first job out of college paid me $85,000 a year at 22 years old. And I don't know many 22-year-olds that can walk away from $85,000 a year, but I found a way to do it. After leaving the cannabis industry, my first start over, real estate. After my grandfather started dying in front of me, I took an emotional hiatus and spent a spring, summer, and fall in Northern California and Southern Oregon, where I had more run-ins with the law than I'd like to admit. And actually one of I call her my mountain sister, came to see me. I haven't seen her in 10 years, and she's here tonight. A woman who I had to get out of Eureka, or get out of Ukiah, make it back to Arcata, call her and tell her that our boyfriends are both in jail and I need her because she has a job and I don't have one on paper, but I've got cash so we could bail them out. Can you come sign for this? She's here, so thank you so much for still being a part of my life after all that. So after that, the whole reality, I got into real estate in 2008. And I don't know if anybody paid attention to the economy in 2008, but that was when the economy fell out from underneath us. I did not sell one single house with my real estate license, but at that exact same time when I was really dejected with my life, I walked in to buy some weed from my friend Josh's dispensary, AAC, over on PCH. It was in Signal Hill at the time. Walk in, and he's like, I'm being evicted. I was like, shit, I think I could do that. And I was like, leases for cannabis, I'll do this. Went home, called all the landlords I knew, found him a location. 72 hours later, I placed my first dispensary. Boom. I had my real estate license for 2 weeks. The market blew up, and you know what? I pivoted, and that's something that I want to make sure. I go over some points, and I'm going to talk about some points and some things that I've learned, and the first thing that I want to make sure that you guys understand is the ability to pivot. The ability to know when it's time to stick and the ability to know when it's time to pivot, because not every bit of this is worth the fight, but sometimes you need to stand up and fucking fight. But that was one of those moments. I wasn't going to change the economy. Boom, let's sell grow houses. Uh, so that happened, and unfortunately, I got really focused on the city of Long Beach. In 2009, the city was doing an ordinance, 5.87, for those of you who are in the Long Beach LBCA. You guys probably remember my face. I spoke a lot back then. I'm also a cancer survivor. That was one of the things that I spoke on at the time, was cannabis use and cannabis, as well as from a business standpoint, what this was going to be able to do for the city. And I became a very big advocate for what was happening at the time. But there was only so many locations in the city of Long Beach. There weren't a ton of cities that were offering licensing processes, and my whole shtick was getting real estate or landlords to take it based on the fact that there was an ordinance, and so this was going to be compliant. So I ran out of a job there. The city of Long Beach stopped doing licensing. We ran out of spaces. There was no more buildings. Have to start my life all over again. So then I got offered partnership at one of my clients here in the city, CCLB. Our original location was on Long Beach Boulevard, just south of Carson. We then moved over to Spring and Studebaker. If you guys are familiar with that area, right across from the disc golf course, would have been the perfect location. Until some NIMBYism in the city came up. And a city councilwoman joined up with another councilman who were very upset about the fact that cannabis ended up in the nice neighborhoods in Long Beach. Apparently, it was only supposed to be in the ghetto. So because we were in the suburbs, they were able to find a way to tweak the ordinance, add parks to the zoning, and officially zone 4 of us out of business in a matter of 60 days. I was a little over $100,000 in fines. I got, when they zoned us out, I was $250,000 in remodels. I was $180,000 in leases. I had an asset seizure. I had my car taken. I thought it was stolen because I'm from Long Beach, but it got taken. And I lost everything. And realistically, the hardest part of that entire process was having to fire all my friends and family, because back then you only hired your friends and family because you couldn't fucking trust anybody. So that was start over number 2. Start over number 3, we did mention weed maps earlier. So after my dispensary got shut down, I spent every penny that I had and traveled the world, came back with $90 to my name, paid my rent for a few months just to be safe, but came back, sent my resume into Weed Maps and said, hey, I was Weed Maps' 13th paying customer. I told them to go fuck themselves the first time they called me and tried to bill me, and then I called them back and was like, what can I do for $600? They were only charging $195, and I was like, take $600, dude, give me more. But so I sent my resume to Weed Maps, and they called me within a few days, and I got hired. I worked for Weed Maps for a little over a year. I helped them launch marijuana.com. It was a $4.5 million acquisition that Weed Maps did. We launched that. They actually brought us out to Colorado. When I got to Colorado, I saw the light. I saw what was happening with regulation. I saw what was happening there that wasn't happening here. And I realized I needed back in. I realized that I was way ahead of my time in Long Beach. Long Beach was not ready for what was happening. We were ahead of the city, we were ahead of the state, we were ahead of everything. When the ordinance finally got fully overturned, it was because the city was too, I hope there's no one here that's gonna blame me for this, but the city was too chicken shit to fight and rewrite the ordinance when the issues had made it to the state Supreme Court stating that there were certain things that were unconstitutional. Rather than rewrite those pieces, the city just went ahead and overturned the entire thing, making everybody go out of business. The city of Long Beach could have done more at that time, but they didn't. You fast forward years later, most of you guys got a better opportunity. It's cool now. I'm sorry if you lost a ton of money, because I'm sure a ton of people lost a ton of money in that process. But when I got to Colorado, I saw the light. So I went and I worked. I got my first job as a bud tender. I had never been a bud tender before. I got into this business owning a dispensary, you know. So I got a job as a bud tender at the clinic. Worked my way up, became a training manager. From the clinic, I got scouted to True Cannabis. I opened 4 stores for them, scaled 100,000 square feet of cultivation. From them, I got scouted to Kind Love. I was director of operations. I opened their recreational locations, built their wholesale department. I've personally sold $17 million in wholesale. And then I got scouted to my largest client, which is the ever ominous Sweet Leaf. I worked at Sweet Leaf for a little over 2 years. And in the fall of 2017, I resigned. I moved back to California with a dream of starting my own cannabis management firm. Start over number 5, doing my own fucking thing. Here's what I've realized. I've gone through this whole entire journey, and I've had all of these moments in my life where I've tried to, for lack of other words, be a Captain Save-A-Ho on these businesses. And you can't always fix some of these things, and in reality, there's a lot of people in this space right now that deserve to learn some lessons, and if people like me keep showing up, pulling the water out of the boat, they're never gonna learn any lessons. And so I might have stunted some people in the process of some very genuine growth that eventually did happen. But in the start over doing my own thing, I created a company specialized in cannabis business development. I'm a liaison for private equity right now, looking to invest in the cannabis industry. They contract me to basically go through, if you're looking for money, they send me to, they call it due diligence, but I call it bullshit detecting. My job is to decide whether or not as a cannabis business, where you are right now, if it's actually where you say you are, because it's really easy to convince investors otherwise. So my job is just to kind of do the due diligence from the business side. I absolutely love it. I've been doing that since about the end of 2017. On December 7th of 2017, I was nominated and won the Cannabis Business Awards Woman of the Year, which was super fucking exciting. Except for 7 days later was when the Sweet Leaf dispensary raids happened. So I got to live on my high horse for all of 7 days posting exciting things. Granted, I didn't work there anymore, but it's really hard when your old employees who you've mentored are in jail posting pictures of you on a private jet. It doesn't feel so good, right? You can't even live the next life, and you can't even really push yourself because who knows what's gonna happen. So I spent all of 2018 living in fear. I wasn't sure where things were gonna go. There was an open investigation. There was a year-long investigation prior to the actual raids. Those raids were the first set and the largest raids in the history of regulated cannabis underneath the regulated cannabis guys. And of course it was. Like, I, of course, had to be a part of the first of something like that. So when we were finally get to the point, according to the government officials, everyone on our team, we were following the law to the letter. But according to the city of Denver, who decided that they needed to find something wrong, we were not following what they call the spirit of the law. The state of Colorado's regulation states that you can purchase 1 ounce per transaction. There's no regulation on transaction. Transaction's not clarified in an hour. I wrote an email. My entire existence is based on this email. I wrote an email to the state saying, what is a transaction? And they replied back, we don't exactly know. A transaction is a single interaction with a customer. We're not really sure. That's all I can give you for now. If you guys get bored, Google it, because it's a fun interaction. I can't speak too much on it right now. But what I can tell you is I had an option between blaming someone else, taking a plea deal, or facing federal investigation. So being as there isn't actually a law that was broken, rather the city of Denver's interpretation or understanding of what the law was, and the fact that we still have no defense in federal court when it comes to cannabis regulations. I can't say the state said that we could do this. They don't give a shit. I, on November 29th, 2018, was sentenced in the state of Colorado to 30 days in the Denver County Jail with a felony drug charge of a DF4, which is distribution of 4 to 12 ounces, which I said in my fucking sleep. And a feeling of complete failure. This was the first ever white-collar crime in the history of cannabis regulation. Story will be elaborated on soon. I got some time before I can fully go into that, but with that, if you're one of those people that reads the newspaper and reads articles that are based off of police reports and government official statements, you're a part of the fucking problem, not the solution. Okay? Because this industry is being portrayed in a very genuine manner right now, and media would like to make us look in a different way. And so if you continue to perpetuate the way that the government is portraying us in mainstream media, you are a part of the problem. That has to stop. You have to understand that the government is still very much not our friends. They're doing this because they want our money. They're doing this because they have no other choice. They're not doing this because they're like, cannabis is so cool, and let's let these people do their thing and change the world and not take all these pain pills and let's make people be happy and let's solve problems of suicide. No, they're not doing it for all those things. They're doing it because they want our money. And so at the end of the day, I've learned a ton of lessons, and I kind of went on my soapbox of the things that I've done just so that you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I've got 5 points or 6 points of the lessons that I've learned that I hope that you can take with you. And even if I just get one person to be a little bit more clear in a really smoky industry, I feel like I've done my part. My first lesson is when building a winning team, mentorship is crucial. Everyone in this industry who's doing something of value should be mentoring someone who wants to learn or wants to become a better professional in this industry. If you don't help mentor more people become better in this business, we are going to get our own industry version of idiocracy. Because everyone's just going to live off of whatever they read on the internet from some forum or whatever some person's live streaming about. If you're not able to help mentor people to understand what's actually happening, we're not going to be able to build a future in this industry. And there's so much value in being able to build people, and that is going to be one of the most integral parts of a winning team. And I think that a lot of people are forgetting how much time it takes to build people, to train people, to encourage people to be strong members of their companies. And with that, you need to focus on education. We're not investing enough money on education, whether it's research, learning, training your team, or training your customers. There's no viability and scalability without knowledge. When looking at the business plans, I often ask people, where's your education budget? And they say, our employees know what they're talking about. And I'm like, okay. Oh, that's cute. And I know there's a ton of educated people in this industry and in this world, but there are far more people who have zero idea about cannabis, its benefits, the regulation, how to access it, things like market research, the mileage cost involved with researching location, advertising, training, wages. All of those things should be equated into your business plan when you're talking about getting a new business going. People aren't doing the research to educate themselves on what this business actually looks like. The amount of people looking for money that haven't done a SWOT analysis on their freaking company is mind-blowing. Like, you don't even know who your competition is. I hope they're not listening, but I have a client that's going to go make their own LED lights in China. And I was like, do you know who your competition is? And like, I've worked with Kavita and I've worked with Nanolux on some R&D programs because I could put 500 lights in a facility and test them. Do you know who your competition is? So that education piece is crucial. Time management. Time manage your life realistically. I feel like this industry is like really good at being like, yeah, I can do that. And then you end up with like 97 projects on your plate, and before you know it, you've sucked at like 94 of them. And that's cool that you thought that you could do all of those things, but just do one thing. Do it really, really well, and then move on to the next thing. My lesson number 3 is remain flexible. Remember, this is an industry where no one really knows what's going on all the time. So you have to be willing to sometimes realize that you were wrong in your initial thoughts and pivot. That's another one of those moments where you gotta pivot. So we need to remain flexible. I mean, a good example is the whole indica sativa hybrid thing, and realizing over time that that was all bullshit, and we've been feeding people this bullshit for all these years, and you're like, bud tender, do you know what an indica is? And they're like, I'm totally that customer that like ruins your bud tender's life when I explain to them that's not a thing, and I'm like, look up cannabis nomenclature, we got it all wrong. And I just leave, and they're like, what did this lady just do to me? My second to last thing that I want to make sure everyone remembers, don't forget why you're doing this. The why is what's going to keep you going over those hurdles. The why is going to be what gets you up in the morning when you feel like shit. The why is going to be the reason why you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going with a smile on your face. The why is the only reason that you'll ever be able to continue with full force and keep things going. I'm really doing this so I can light a fire under some of your asses and burn it white hot for the next few years, because if we get complacent, which takes me into my last point, which is don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. The war's not over. Remember that people are still getting locked up for this plant, okay? Remember that the government isn't going to do this because they want to. They're not doing this because they're our friends. They want our money. The system was built on expectations of failures and fines. Failures and fines. After the past decade devoting my life to cannabis, ending up in a cell, I was reminded of the importance of cannabis reform. And now I've got this new soapbox of prison reform. That's a whole nother topic that we'll bring up later. But if you want to be a part of this industry in its infancy state, it's imperative that you be a part of the reform. Be a signature collector, or raise money for lobby efforts, or write your local congressman. But for the love of all things cannabis, stop expecting everyone else to do it for you and be a part of what's happening. Be a part of the change that you're expecting to see. And on a big level, Long Beach is such a beautiful example of what it means to work with your local government. How much you can actually do when you work with your local government. It took them for fucking ever, but they did it. They did it, and the LBCA has been pushing and pushing and pushing, and now the city of Long Beach is one of the best cities in the way of cannabis regulations, the businesses, the opportunity here. All my friends are from Colorado are like, I'm moving to Long Beach. I'm like, see you there. But don't get comfortable is my main message to all of this. I can't stress that enough. Don't get comfortable. And I raise all my points in, have you guys ever seen that show Naked and Afraid, where they do like your survivability ratings, right? So everyone, when you go home tonight, rate yourself. Your survivability rating. Put your comfortability level, your reason why, your flexibility, your time management, the amount of time you're willing to put on education, and your team. And that's gonna show your survivability level in these next 5 years. Thank you, guys.